Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you for participating in this MaxiForce in Action training webinar. It's our first training one, so you have to bear with us. In this time of COVID, we are strewn to be on the web rather than in person. We'd rather be there in person to show you what's going on, but restrictions applied, we can't. So you have to bear with us on this, especially with me. I'd rather present in front of people rather than to a screen. So here we go. My name is Nigel Letherby. I'm the training manager for Paratech. I've worked for Paratech for 23 years now. Worked my way from assembly up through the ranks and to where I am today. A lot of you know me because I've been all over around the world doing this training for Paratech. So we'll see if we can get through this presentation without any hiccups, and away we go. If you take a look at your toolbar, your taskbar for Teams, you'll see the little square with the lines through it. That is so you can get into the chat on the right-hand side. The Paratech regional managers are there to answer questions. There may be a delay in the answer, but it is what it is because it's a web-based PowerPoint. If your slide is not advancing, go over to the left of your taskbar and you say to presenter. If you press that, it should bring you to the slide that I am presenting at the time. MaxiForce demo, we did the demo last week and it went off pretty good. We had some hiccups with the second one, but if you take a look, if you mute everything and turn the video off, then we should be good to go. These are the upcoming webinars for the next events. The next one's going to be next week, which is a vehicle stabilization kit, followed by the multi-force, rapid extrication kit, hydrofusion, highway vehicle stabilization kit, heavy vehicle extrication kit, and finally the strut driver. These are all your up and comings. These are all the dated on the right-hand side. They're about a week after each other. So we're trying to do one a week at the moment. We also do one in Spanish in South America on the same day. That one should be going on now or just finishing up. This is a PowerPoint presentation for informational purposes only. It's not a substitute for actual training, but it just gives you an idea and maybe some tricks of the trade, some tips, something you haven't thought of or you haven't seen. Improper use of airlift bags can cause serious injury or death. Think safe, act safe, be safe. Always lift an inch, crib an inch. You'll see this throughout all the slides. The reason being, some pictures you'll see in the slides as we go on don't have any cribbing in there. That we did just for the pictures for this scenario, for the webinar. It was done in a controlled environment. Only myself was there. So bear with us with that. Okay, we've got 14 different sizes of MaxiForce airbags, 9 square, 5 rectangle. The airbags, as you know, got the yellow centering X on both sides. They've also got a centering mark on each end of the airbag. Lowering eyes on airbags of 12 ton and above. Warning signs, and they operate at 150 PSI. You can only stack a maximum of 2 airbags. They also come with an ATEC Group 1 certification. That ATEC Group 1 certification is mainly for mines. We passed the certification because nothing on our airbag system is sparking. Whereas in the mines, spark is critical for the methane and everything else. It's very flammable in the mines. On the MaxiForce airlift bags, you'll see the corner of the bag offering the airlift bag data. Tells you what bag it is, tells you what pressure, gives you the capacity, and also gives you the serial number. It also has got a protected air inlet nipple. You see the two bumps of rubber coming up alongside each side of the nipple. That protects the nipple and the coupling when you're using it in operation. The yellow centering hash marks on the side, we got on each side of the bag. It also gives the capacity, both in metric ton and US ton. The US ton is first, metric ton is second. US ton's got the capital T or the uppercase T, the metric ton's got the lowercase t. The maximum shelf life on an airbag is 15 years. It's also made of neoprene with an aramid Kevlar reinforcement. It's got 3 layers of Kevlar reinforcement, each side of the bag, plus wrap around the edges. Capacity range for the MaxiForce airbag is 1.5 ton up to 89 tons. The capacity formula with the airbag is length times width times pressure. Example, if I got a 10-inch by 10-inch airbag and I put 150 psi in it, that surface area gives me 15,000 pounds or 7.5 ton of capacity. Remember, as these bags inflate, your surface area decreases. That you got to take into account when you pick the bag that you need for the application. The load chart table you see on the screen now to pick the right size bag. Example, if you're lifting 10 ton, 10 inches, then the bag you're going to need will be a KPI 44 bigger. Again, going back to your surface area decreases when the height of your bag increases. The square gets smaller. So that's the reason behind these load tables you see here. You'll take a look at the side numbers along with the lower numbers. You go up to tell you what bag you need. The equipment we're going to be using is the dual deadman controller, MaxiForce preset regulator. For those of you who didn't come in the demo last week, we actually got a new preset regulator now. We were going to show that and bring it out at the FDIC, but because the FDIC was postponed, we couldn't do that, so hence we're bringing it out in the webinars. The MaxiForce inline relief valves we're going to be using, Y connectors, hoses, industry interchange, industrial twist lock, tire chuck, and the case. The reason I'm breezing through these is because we want to get more onto the training side of things. We covered this in detail last week with the demo webinar. The MaxiForce dual deadman controller you see, still got the green and the red buttons, still got the color-coded gauges. It's got the different size body. Now it's also got safety couplings. Built-in protective relief valves on the preset regulator. It's covered by a nickel filter to stop dust and any aggregate getting in there. The outlet nipple, quarter turn shutoff valve that you see on top. The inline relief valve also comes with a safety coupling, integrated nipple, relief valve set to 165, quarter turn on-off valve. Y connector, again, 2 safety couplings, 1 inlet nipple. Hoses also come with the safety couplings. The ones we use in the MaxiForce Master Control Kit, we use 5 16-foot hoses, different colors, all come with brass coupling and nipple. Also field replaceable safety couplings and nipple. As you see, the couplings just to the right of the hoses. Also in the kit, we've got the industrial interchange, the nipple with lock-in tire chuck, and the twist lock shutoff adapter. A twist lock shutoff adapter is used with toe behind compressors that you see there. These are normally used in construction sites. What that does, it puts out high volume of air. The max you're going to go with that compressor is around about 185 psi. So you can plug the hose directly into your controls. You don't have to go through a regulator to reduce the air pressure. Cleaning of the MaxiForce airbags, you can use soap and water only. Rinse off, hand brush, cloth. Don't pressure wash the bag. Keep the exterior of the components clean of dirt, oil, grease, and accumulations. Be particularly careful to remove all dirt, sand from around the filters, the nipples, the couplings. Rinse in a bucket. Example, if you're using the hoses for trench rescue, or if you're using the hoses with airbags in a ditch, they get dirt and mud on them. You can rinse them off in a bucket of water, get that dirt off, you're good to go. We'll cover what we're going to do for maintenance with the couplings and the nipples a little bit later in the presentation. In the likely event you need to repair is needed for all parts and equipment. It can be repaired most probably in the field, especially with the hoses, the couplings, the nipples. Depending what goes wrong with the controllers and the regulators, it may not be able to be repaired in the field unless a qualified maintenance guy is there, mainly from the factory or a dealership. Basically, with the hoses, if you take a look at the couplings, the nipples look the same way. You cut the hose square where the cut is in the hose. You take out the coupling and the ferrule. The ferrule has got a left-handed thread. So if you're going to try to take the ferrule off the hose the regular way, it's not going to work. The ferrule's got a left-handed thread. When you've cut the hose square, put the ferrule back on the hose. Make sure to look inside the ferrule so the hose comes up to the shoulder. Screw the coupling in, screw the coupling all the way down, and you'll be good to go with the hose. Again, it'll be back up and running. Do exactly the same thing with the nipple. The 3 wrenches you need are 7/8 for the coupling, 11/16 for the ferrule, 9/16 for the nipple. Short-term storage for the airbags at temperatures, as you see there, 1 hour or less, -75 to +220. Long-term, you can leave a long-term for storage at anywhere from -40 up to 150 degrees Fahrenheit. Your components must be protected from any extreme environment conditions where blowing dust, sand, grit, other similar materials. Also, do not store the airbags with gasoline products. If you've got saws or things like that in there, the actual fumes from the gasoline will deteriorate the rubber over time, the neoprene. It will deteriorate some of the components over time. Cover the nipple on the bags with a protective cap to stop anything going in. You can store the airbags either flat or on their edge. It doesn't make a difference. Because there is no wires as your reinforcement now, the airbags will bounce back to exactly the same state they were. Where the bags were reinforced with wire, the wire used to relax and create a big shoulder on the edge of the bags. Bags don't do that anymore. Setup of the airbags. Check the center of gravity. Checking the center of gravity of the object being lifted. Basically, if you've got a vehicle on its side, example, school bus, and you're going to do a lift, you want to hinge the school bus by the front or the back of the bus. Basically, you're lifting the length of the bus up. You need to check the center of gravity of that vehicle. Meaning, take a look where the weight is on the vehicle. A lot of times when you're using airbags, you normally put the airbag right in the center of the area you're lifting to do the lift. But if the weight is all the way to the one side, you may want to move your airbag over towards the weight a little ways. So you are lifting that object up straight. That is picking the right spot to place the airbags. When you place the airbags, you need to check for sharps under the vehicle or an object for placement of airbags. You don't want a bolt, a screw going into that airbag. The airbag will still do the lift, but if that screw goes through the airbag, then your airbag is done. You cannot use that airbag again. It'll be out of service. Then you're most probably going to get a new one. You can use protection on these airbags. Good thing to use if you're out in the field and it's available is if you're dealing with semi-trucks, cut off one of the mud flaps on the semi-truck, gives good protection. The other thing you can use that's normally used is plywood. Use a 3/4 ply. One, it's not going to break as fast as your 1/2 inch, and it does give a lot of good protection on that. The other thing you're going to check when you use plywood is in case it slips. Please don't paint or varnish your ground pads or your protection pads with plywood. They do create a slippery surface, and it doesn't look nice when you put them on gravel. You do a lift and they're all marked up. Picking the right size airbag for the job is crucial. Always, what I do is I pick the largest bag in my arsenal to use if it'll fit in the spot it needs to go. Reason being is the bigger the bag, the more height I get. Also, I get more capacity with that bag. Going back to the load chart you seen earlier, for a 10-ton lift, I need about a 50-ton bag to lift 10 tons, 10 inches. My 12-ton bag will do the job, but my 12-ton bag will only lift it for a couple of inches. So, picking the right bag, I always go with the biggest. If you have an abundance of airbags, then hey, go with the biggest one. Always use the largest airbag. If you were lifting a 5,000-pound vehicle and your largest bag is a 52-ton bag, which is a KPI 44, I'd use it. If I can get it in, I'd use it. Again, it gives you the option of more height and greater capacity without stacking. Always place yourself 45 degrees to the ejection path that airbag goes in. What I mean is, you take a look. If I'm tilting that Explorer there from in between the two wheels, I want to be off 45 degrees from that airbag for the ejection path. The last thing you want to do is for that airbag to come sliding out of there at force and hitting somebody, creating injuries or bodily harm. If, for instance, you are lifting, going again, lift an inch, crib an inch. If you got cribbing in place and something like that does happen, it slips, then the weight or the vehicle is going to default to the crib. Thus, your airbag's not going to eject. It may move a little ways, but it's not going to eject all the way. Setup. Connecting the system from the furthest point of the airbag. Connect before positioning. That is, when you set the bags you need, whether it's going to be stacked or anything, these two are stacked. I got two size bags. I got a big and a small. I always put the biggest on the bottom, smallest on the top. I always connect my airbags first. Make sure you adjust up that safety coupler. If you don't adjust the safety coupler collar up, it's going to leak. That's the idea of the safety coupler. Place, look at the hash marks on the side, line them up. Once the hose is attached, you can push it under the load. Then I come and attach my hoses to my controls. My controls are already set up with my air cylinder. I get airflow into the controls. My hoses will go on. I put inline relief valves on the controls if I need them. I put the hoses on the inline relief valves. I connect my hoses as the last thing, so that way it's less likely for something to go wrong. If there's a problem with the controller, maybe it's leaking by slowly and you can't hear it, you can't see it, then by putting the hoses on last, if something does happen, I can disconnect. If everything's connected and the last thing I do is put the hose on the bag's going to inflate. One, you're not going to get the bag under the load. So it's just a case then, it's going to take time for you to disconnect, find the problem, and go from there. The regulator, if you take a look, you got your preset regulator, attach it to the air cylinder, attach your hose, safety coupling, open up the cylinder, then open up the valve. Then you got airflow into your controls. Then the bottom right picture shows you a setup with Y connectors and inline relief valves actually on the controls. That we use for basically a 2.4 bag lift where I need 4 ports coming off that controller. Here in the picture, you see a 1.1 bag lift. When you do your 360 around that vehicle, you're going to choose a point where your airbag needs to go. Then you're going to put your stabilization in. You never want to put your stabilization in first, then take a look at where my bag's going to go. If the vehicle is to ground, then I'm going to put my primary stabilization in, which is my 4x4s and my wedges. In a situation you see on the right-hand side there, the first thing I'm going to do for that bus on top of that car is I'm going to put one strut in there. It's going to be down and dirty. It's going to be stop the crush strut. The strut's just going to go in. I'm not going to put any ratchet straps on it if I don't need them. It's going to be almost vertical. It just stops that bus coming down any further while I put my stabilization on that bus. Then I can place my airbag in, then do the lift. Always remember safety first. As that bus is settling on that car, that bus keeps on crushing that car. So stop the crush strut goes in, helps out with that. It's down and dirty, but hey, it works. It's been proven to work out in the field, and it's a great thing to do. 1.1 bag lift applications. You see the left, the school bus, with the bag offset to the right side of that bus. Going back to your center of gravity. Normally on a regular lift, that bag would be in the center of that bus. But because all the weight is on the right-hand side with the wheels, the axles, the fuel tank, AC units, and everything else on the underside of that bus, if I were to put the bag in the center, then that bus would want to tend to roll off that car or put undue stress on the strut on the right-hand side, your stabilization. By offsetting the bag to the weight, it will lift that bus up straight and not put an undue stress on any of your stabilization. The one in the center of the car, I'd say the car is one of the hardest things to lift when it's on its side because of that center of gravity. There's not much room to put the bag. There's not much strength there to put the bag. It tends to buckle, fold with the plastic and the fenders. But it does work. You can do it. That's what, if you take a look at that picture, you'll see the one strut on the right-hand side is around about, I'd say about maybe 60 degrees. And the one on the left-hand side is about 45 degrees. They did that to, when you lift the car, to stop the car rolling towards the left-hand side of that screen. That helps it out a little bit. Then they follow it up as it goes. Normally it tilts the car a little ways, but with the airbag under that, it does lift. Some of you may not have seen this, but the picture on the right shows an airbag on top of two semi-tires with some cribbing on top. A lot of times we don't crib on top of the airbags, but some applications you need to. If you take a look at this, if you can imagine an underride under the trailer, under that van trailer of that tractor trailer of the semi. Underride's under there. You arrive with an engine. The only thing you've got is airbags and some cribbing. What do? Do you just tend to the patient and wait for an oncoming rig that's got everything you need, or can you go to work? You can go to work on this. If you take a look what we've got there, we got 4 dualies, and what we do, we put a bag on every dually. Make sure you lock out everything. We're going to put some stabilization in. Placed in the bag on the dualies, we put a 4x4 in between the dualies, give it some surface area so the bag doesn't dip in. The underside of that trailer looks like a roof, basically. It's got girders going from the left to the right of the trailer. We need to make contact with 2 of them. That's why we put the cribbing on top of the bag. 4x4 is preferable, 2 of them, where it catches 2 points of contact. Take a look at the rivets. The rivets show where the strength is. We'll go across the 2 strands of girders. We can inflate the bags, and what that does for you, it lifts the suspension on that truck. The wheels maintain contact with the ground, so it makes that trailer very stable, but also lifting that box off of the car that's in the center. We can achieve around about 8 to 10 inches of lift doing it that way, but with minimal equipment. Again, don't forget to stabilize the box before you lift from the tires. That way you contact and you control that lift and stabilization. It works really well. Works really well. 1.2 bag lift. Basically, your 1.2 bag lift is stacking the bags. When you're picking the 2 bags for this operation, be sure they are close in capacity. Don't put a 50-ton bag in a 5-ton bag. Doesn't work. When stacking them, always put the smaller bag on top. Be sure that the airbags are centered using the side marks. Put the inflation ports on opposite sides. Reason being, with the inflation ports on opposite sides, you can determine what bag you're lifting from outside of the vehicle. What airbag to inflate first? Basically, inflating airbags, this has always been a topic. What airbag do you inflate first? Personally, I inflate the bottom bag first, then the top. The reason being is if I can do the job with my bottom bag, which ends up normally being bigger than my top bag, then all well and good, I can do that. That maintains I can use the capacity of that airbag. But if I start inflating that top bag, then my capacity goes to the smaller bag, which is the top one. In that case, I'm not going to get full capacity out of that. But out there, instructors teach the top bag first, the bottom bag first. Doesn't really make a difference. It's personal preference. We could really get into an argument with this, but is it worth it? No. As long as you make the indentation in the bottom bag so the top bag goes in and makes contacts and stop moving around with the stipple effect, you're good to go. Always make sure you got no rolling of the airbags. If the airbags start to roll, stop, tighten up your cribbing, rethink what you need to do. This one is a semi-truck on top of the car. The wheel of the semi-truck is sitting on the driver's lap of the car, where we had to lift the semi-truck up straight. On one side, we got a different lifting device. On this side, we put airbags under the axle itself. We did the lift straight. So you can use airbags with other lifting devices that we manufacture or that is out there. Applications, the one on the left you just seen. The one in the middle is using two bags to lift a concrete high beam, using the concrete high beam. Then the one on the right, we've got the two stacks under a tank. Believe me, I did that, the one under the tank many moons ago. That tank was heavy because that tank is actually a minesweeper tank. It's got a huge steel plate on the front of it that goes down over the IAD. Then they explode the IAD and the tank jumps a little bit, so I was told. I would not like to be in that tank when that happens because it'd frighten the living daylights out of me. But that's the single point, two bag lift. Some of the applications that's there. Remember, if the vehicle or the object starts going side to side when you're doing a lift using a 1.2 bag, tie the object off. Tie the object both ways with your come-alongs, with your straps, with your ropes, or whatever you've got. Make sure they are strong enough. Then you can lift that object all day long. 2.2 bag lift is more stable than your 1 point. Reason being is I got 2 points of contact on the object I'm lifting. Makes it a lot more stable. Airbag placement is crucial on this, as you'll need to lift the object symmetrically. Using two ports of your dual controller inflates the bag independently can be done. That's not a problem. Using one port with a dual controller with a white connector so the bags lift simultaneously if you want to lift it straight is great. That way the load does not veer to the right or to the left. It lifts symmetrically and you're good to go. We also do this lift with cylindrical objects like your concrete pipes and different things. I'll put a bag on each side. That way I attach it to a white connector. I inflate the bags go up straight. It does not roll the pipe. Again, using bags close in size with lifting the pipe works real well. If the object got an irregular shape, then inflating the bags independently will work best for you. Some of the 2.2 bag lift applications, the one on the left, you see a semi. We got it under the DOT bars, but if you take a look at the bag placement, we've got it right under the vertical strength of the DOTs. We don't place it to the end where we're going to bend the DOT bar. Place it on the verticals. That way you're going to lift that semi up straight off the vehicle. Try to maintain and capture the suspension on the cars. That way the car stays where it is. Once the semi is stable and your airbags are in place, your suspension is captured on that car. If you want, you can deflate the tires on that car. And that way it gives you an extra 3 inches or 2 or 3 inches with the weight of that semi to either extricate in place or pull the car out. One of the questions I've been asked before is, if I ratchet the suspension down on the car, how can I pull the car out? Because my strap is going to get tighter, so on and so forth. Yes, it will get tighter. Always remember to put that strap on to the top of the wheel, not the bottom. because if that wheel rolls as you're dragging that car out, the suspension strap loosens up, thus your car lifts. An easy way to counteract that is take a couple of wedges, put a couple of wedges behind the wheels of the car, take a hammer, tap them in, and allow that rubber to ride up on the wood or the plastic, and that way we'll drag that car out nice and straight without any hesitation. What I use in an application like that are called Toman skids. Basically, they look like a wedge, but they're only about a ½ inch thick. It's easy to put under the vehicle. It's easy because on a slide because they're plastic and they work real well. You can set the direction of the skids if you want that front end of that car or the back end of the car to move a certain way when you're dragging it out. Then that car being on the skid will follow the skid to a certain extent. The one in the center is going back where we've got 2 airbags on top of the wheel. There was enough room to put 2 airbags on there, or that semi. I'm basically doing the same lift as we did with the one bag, 1 point lift. The concrete pipe you see on the right, again, goes back to your 2 point, 2 bag with a Y connector to lift that cylindrical pipe up nice and straight. 2.4 bag lift. This is where we use 4 bags to give a greater height. You'll need to use Y connectors for this because as you see, the airbags have got 4 hoses coming off. It's got a hose coming off each airbag, coming into your Y connectors and your controls. Works well, but you need to watch roll from the airbags. Again, lift 1 inch, crib 1 inch. Using inline relief valves with Y connectors give you some options. One, the options it gives you, I'll connect both my bottom bags to one Y connector, my 2 top bags to the other Y connector. That way I can lift one level at a time. I'll have inline reliefs on my Y connectors. That way if something does happen, it does roll, it does shift a little ways, then I can shut off the bags I need to shut off and independently work them. It's a little bit of a mess up at the controls, and you've got to realize what you're doing because you've got different color hoses on the Y connectors, but it does work real well. It will go up, it will go, and you can do the distinction of the hoses going to the airbags. So as you see, the airbags are virtually out on the edge of that object you're lifting. When you do this, make sure the hoses are on the opposite side of the airbags when you stack them. Going back to stacking same size or close with the airbags. 2.4 bag lift applications. We have a couple of different applications here. The one on the left, we lift in a dumpster. Hardest thing with lifting that dumpster is if you take a look at the placement of the airbags. The dumpster is a little bit irregular because it's got the steel rollers in the middle. Excuse me. We could have placed one set of airbags right in the center of those steel rollers to do the lift, but we don't know what the capacity of that dumpster is. If that dumpster is full of concrete, full of steel, full of anything it could be, lifting with that 2.4 bag gives us height, excuse me, and it gives us stability. Again, we got a stabilization on the sides just to lift that dumpster straight up. What you've got to watch when you're dealing with these dumpsters, if you see those steel rollers on the end of that dumpster, most often than not, it's got the steel rollers on the other side as well. So you may want to block out that dumpster on the other side so it lifts and it makes contact with some cribbing. The last thing you want to do is to start lifting that dumpster and those steel rollers to roll. They are made there so when it loads onto the truck, they roll a little ways and the truck backs into it. So that you got to watch. The one in the center was just a Connex box lift. Somebody trapped under a Connex box and doing a 2.4 bag lift there. It's nice, and the Connex box is great. It's strong. It lifts symmetrical. But if this thing ever does happen, the Connex box does come off a trailer, what you got to watch with a Connex box? Maximum capacity or maximum GVW going down the road should be 80,000 pounds on a truck, on your semi. Connex box could be up to 120,000 pounds. The reason being they maximize the space in the Connex box. They maximize it coming from whatever country they load it in. That way, shipping is cheaper. So it could be loaded with paper, could be loaded with cardboard boxes. it could leak inside. So that way all moisture and the paper and the cardboard gets wet, and so on and so forth with that. We had one year in Chicagoland a few years back where one of the wreckers went out. The truck rolled over, Connex box separated from the trailer. They had two wreckers out there, and they could not lift the Connex box from the side of the drainage ditch. It was too heavy. Well, the problem was that this was filled with paper. It happened in the winter time. It was wet. It rolled over, sat there for overnight. Then the paper froze. So then it was like a concrete in a cement mixer. Once it sets, that's where the weight is. So they had to refigure out what to do the lift. And that's what you've got to do if you're using your airbags and your stabilization. You've got to try to figure out what's in there. Don't open the doors. Reason being, whatever's in there is going to come out at you. Best way to check is try to check the manifest or the driver. Some of the drivers don't know what they're hauling. They just know, pick up the manifest, put it in the side of the door, and away to go. Next one we see was in training. We had a car inverted on top of another car, which you may see this in some large accidents. But we had a 2.4 bag lift on that to lift the top car off the bottom one. As you see, we lifted off the hood, lifted that car up to gain some access to free up some of the stress going on the roof of the bottom car so they could extricate the person out of there. Daisy chain. Daisy chain is an awesome tool. Reason we use a daisy chain, if you take a look at the picture there, we got 4 bags under a long load. You can use as many bags as you like. Just make sure you got the air capacity to do this. Always run the daisy chain off one dual deadman. You can use it off one side of the dual deadman. Always start the connection from either the start, which is the dual deadman side, or the end of the blank end of the chain. Reason being, I've seen this 100 times where we're using 4 multiple bags. We may be using the bags on different sides of the vehicle, and you'll start connecting the white connectors, they start connecting the hoses to the bags, then they find they've either got 2 couplings together or 2 mil nipples together, which don't connect. Then they've got to go through the rigmarole of disconnecting the hoses, turning the white connectors, and going back. So by starting at one end, which is either the controls or the dead, working your way around, you always get the connection right, and it saves time. I always try to start from the dead end, come into my controls, reason being the safety aspect, where it is I'm always in control of the air going into those bags. If I start at the controls and start working my way around, if the bags are on opposite sides of the vehicles and someone sees a controller laying there, especially in operations when everybody's screaming, you need to get him out, you need to get him out, this, that, and the other, someone may grab that control and start to do that lift when you're not ready. You haven't connected the bags on the other side. So I normally go from the dead end to the controls. It's a lot safer. The picture on the right you see was the same tank that we were using. We just did a daisy chain under the tracks to lift the tank. They wanted to see if we could lift the side of the tank up, which we did. It was a good lift, but if you take a look at the track is very flexible, and the wheels in the center, if you got about 6 wheels, the 4 wheels in the center have got the suspension on them. So as you see, the wheels went up with the bag. So for instance, if any of you are in the military and you do this on the recovery side, you know that those wheels have got the suspension on, and you're not going to lift the tracks up by just putting it under the track and lifting those wheels. Applications, we got a daisy chain on a school bus, the daisy chain on the truck you just saw, and the daisy chain on the tank. Horizontal shift. Again, this could be done in many applications. The airbag will be placed in vertically and held while partially inflated so it does not drop. Once it makes contact and holds, then you can back away and do the push if you need to. Placement is also crucial on this, so you push away, not just tilt. Using ropes to lower in place from the top of an object is preferred. Can also be used to separate window bars. If you're in a bad area or an area where you're at, it's got window bars on it, you want to get in. A lot of times you go in with your K12 and cut them, or you go in with the spreader. You can also go in with the airbags and push them away. That was a use that we've done. We've done it a lot. But basically, guys, that horizontal shift in the center, the picture, if you've seen it, there was an actual with the truck went around the corner. The load shifted. Then the truck was listed real bad, and they went in with the airbags to push the load back on center so the truck could drive away. Biggest problems with load shift on this is, excuse me, is we've had a couple of load shifts like this in actual, where the load is shifted. With van trailers, you can't tie the load down on a van trailer. The trailer goes in. A lot of times they put dunnage in there. The dunnage stops the load from moving around, but a lot of times you see in that configuration, they didn't. And without being able to tie that load down, it does shift with corners and with reactions, with braking and everything else. So with that, they do push the load back into the center. This is done a lot with your tow trucks. Tow trucks do the push. Reason being, because if they tow the vehicle away, the load's got to be central to tow it away. So pushing it back into the center so they can tow it away or drive it away. The picture on the right is the same. The picture on the right is the same picture from the outside of the truck, whereas you can see that load being shifted back into place. Next thing we go, lift and shift. This can be achieved by using 2 or 4 bags. 1 or 2 lifting airbags and 1 or 2 shifting airbags. Big lifting airbag on the bottom, smaller shifting airbag. Sorry, bigger lifting airbag on the top, smaller shifting airbag on the bottom. This operation can be done with different objects. If you take a look at the pictures we got here, we got a regular lift and shift on the left using 2 airbags. We get a big one on top, small one on the bottom. We inflate, we place the smaller bag on the bottom just off the center of the lifting bag. Then we inflate the lifting bag to lift the object up. Try to get at least 3/4 of height of that lifting bag. Once we do that, then we can inflate our shifting bag slowly. Then it will roll your lifting bag, thus moving the load to one side or the other you need to go. This is a great way to lift and shift. I've done this, put in train cars back on the tracks. It's not a quick operation because using this application, it will only move that object around about maybe 3 or 4 inches. Once it doesn't roll any further, or it's going to make contact with a coupling as you see on that picture, stop, deflate your lifting bag first, then deflate your shifting bag, reposition, and go again. The picture on the right, as you see, I'm using 2 lifting bags and 2 shifting bags. Exactly the same way, except if I got a heavier load or a longer load I need to shift, I can do it this way. Thus, I've got the capacity to lift. Then I shift off of the same side of the controls. My lifting bags will be on one Y connector. My shifting bags will be on another Y connector going to my controls. Doing the same thing. It's still only going to go about 3 or 4 inches. Deflate your lifting, deflate your shifting, reset, and go again. If you take a look at this container I've got on the right-hand side, if you take a look all the way to the back of the container, this is a picture I did last week where my container was up in the air. It's full of trench panels and everything else, where I added up on basically cribbing. If you're shifting something that's on cribbing, that's on multiple stack cribbing, or even single stack cribbing, take a look and monitor that cribbing at the back, because the angle of the end of that container at the back is going to change. So it's going to alter the cribbing where it's at under the container. So always maintain that as you go. That way you don't lose the lift of that container. You can also stabilize the container by moving the container. You have to use, on this particular application, you have to use 4x4 wedges or a step chuck, moving the step chuck as you go. Always remember, if that container is close to another object, don't go in between. try to utilize where the airbags are on those corners to support that load. Chemical compatibility. Excuse me. A lot of companies don't come out with this. We have this chemical compatibility on all our airbag MaxiForce manuals. The chemical compatibility. There are 4 main categories. A for excellent service, B for good service, C for fair service, and U not recommended. You can read those. Excellent service is basically long service. Good service is intermittent. Fair service is very infrequent. Take a look at some of the common chemicals you come up against on maybe accidents on the road. Gasoline's a B, which is a good service. Brake fluid is a B. Diesel hydraulic oil's a B. Your kerosene is a C, so it's fair. Intermittent service needs to be used with kerosene. Drinking water is a B. Water you get out of your faucets, you look out of bottles, is a B. The reason being is the chemicals they put in there for you to drink it. That's what chemicals are rated at as a B. Mineral oil. So all you guys using hydraulic tools with airbags, if it's mineral oil based, it's good. It's an excellent working with mineral oil. It will not affect your rubber of your bag. Sewage. If you're in a trench, you got to lift the pipe. Sewage is a B. It's a good with sewage. Chlorine, dry or wet's a C, so that's fair. Iodine. You guys use iodine in your ambulances and everything. That's a U. Cannot use it on top of iodine. Don't spill iodine on your bag. If you do, you need to wash it off straight away. LPG is a B. So most things you see on the side of the road with accidents, it's got good service with your airbag. You can use your airbag virtually most of the day with that. You can sit in there most of the day, but always remember, when you get back to your station, wash that bag off. Warm soapy water, dry it off, and you'll be good to go. Okay, guys, thanks for being here with this presentation. It's been a bit longer than I expected, but we've had some problems with this advancement, which I hope we sort out in the next one. Follow-up email from your regional managers. You can ask any questions on the meeting chat. We're going to be here for a little bit. Feedback section will be in an email. Please give us feedback on this, because we don't want to take up all your time with something it's not informational and things like that. Short link to a video outlining the use of the system will be in your follow-up email. Links to quote section will be on our website. Webinars will be listed online as they come live. This was a demo webinar. We hope you enjoyed it, and always remember, when you're lifting, lift an inch, crib an inch. This webinar is finished. There will be a follow-up email. Again, website is www.paratech.com. My name is Nigel Letherby, Training Manager with Paratech. Again, thank you for your time.